welcome to the Lowdown Mortgage Podcast, the show where we dive deep into the topics that directly impact the mortgage architects that are building design into their business to unlock scale and achieve freedom. I'm your host, Connor Bartley. Bam! And joining me today is someone who accidentally found her way into mortgage, bet on herself by going commission only, and has built a thriving business by learning how to stop being the technician and start becoming the CEO. She's built a business in the unique Alaskan market while figuring out delegation, leadership, and how to buy back her time. Amanda Filori, welcome to the Lowdown.
Hi, Connor. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, first guest from Alaska on the show. I'm sure there's several, states that I haven't yet to cover yet through the Lowdown, but I just think it's such a unique state to talk about and some of the different challenges you might run into originating in a market like that. And so I'm excited to dive into all of this because, to be quite frank, like, I've known you for a little over a year. We talked a while back and then just reconnected about the podcast. And I just remember being really impressed by sort of your Renaissance background and all the things that you've done and how well-rounded it is. And just this get it done kind of attitude. We haven't talked about this, but do you remember what's the quote that your grandpa used to tell you all the time? Because that was one thing that I remember stood out. You know it. What is it?
So it was like my grandpa always had 3 pieces of advice, like, trying to make sure I was, going to be okay growing up, maybe. The more life skills you have, the less you go hungry. Save 20%, basically always invest in yourself, and don't trust boys.
Love that. Love that.
Yeah, I always tell people I learned the first one, that one I think was natural. I like to learn new things. If I'm bored or if I feel I've learned the skill, I want to go learn something else and just keep compounding on that. Curious. 20%. Yeah, you got to invest in yourself. Boys, I'm still trying to figure it out.
Yeah. Well, I love that advice, really all bits of it. And, and I think that, but the first piece, like, have enough skills so that you don't go hungry, is great. And you had a lot of different, experiences and jobs before you got into mortgage. You were, in escrow, accounting, you were a cook. I think you've been in theater quite a bit. Like,
everything. I was a fisherman. My background is theater. So I was a lighting technician for a very long time, since I was a teenager in high school. Fishing got me out of Ketchikan, a small island community. Like, bye, see you. I'm just gonna be gone for the summer, but then you have to learn how to, like, be on the water, work on a boat. And then traveling around with, doing theater stuff, cooking, just trying to find, figure out stuff like college. I just wasn't sure, because I felt like for me, I didn't have the means necessarily. And I wanted to go, if I was going to learn something from it that actually gave me a skill to make money, basically. And so that's kind of how I looked at it. So trying to figure it out. And then I had my kid when I was 22. So I was like, I better really learn about money now. Okay. And then I worked for attorneys after that, learning how to document, argue, advocate. And then I was an escrow officer. But then in between that, I was also a bartender, events person, theater person, teaching artist, substitute teacher. I worked for an engineering firm too as a drafter. Most of the time, it's just if there's opportunities and it's interesting and it makes sense, right? And then, now basically I'm a mortgage lender, and I realize when I tell people what I do all the time is I connect people to opportunities. And I think that if you are considering like this industry, or, like if the audience is like, we're all leveling up, that's how we like get more people to, be a part of the industry or want to grow into it or understand it, is because we're connecting people to opportunities. And like, if we work as a team and connect each other to the opportunities that help us grow. Anyway, I kind of was thinking about that earlier today, but that in a nutshell, yes, I have a diverse background, but it all makes sense when you put it together.
Yeah, well, I think that's great. I mean, different exposure to different experiences make you, interesting, right? Like when you kind of expose yourself to different things, you get a better understanding of the world and how it operates and what it means to be a fisherman or what it means to be, a drafter in an architectural sort of engineering world. So you really do get a better perspective on things. But a lot of those jobs that you mentioned, I would imagine were like hourly wage or salaried positions, and mortgage lending is commission only. And I know
Hmm.
we talked about it, like that was a little terrifying to go into that. What was the moment where you thought about, getting into a commission only position? Like, I'm either going to figure this out or I'm going to fall on my face and it's just going to be embarrassing. Like, what was that moment for you?
I mean, I think I was just offered an opportunity to switch from being an escrow officer to going to mortgage, which I was like, okay, but that position was kind of lateral. There was still a salary and it wasn't as much commission, right? It was a little bit safer, at a bank. I got a call. Someone connected me to an opportunity. Nancy Hudson, I took over for her at Cornerstone Home Lending. She was going to retire. I think I told you this, but she believed in me. And I was like, oh, she's like the best. I respect her so much. And, maybe I need to believe in myself too. Right. And then you have to like ask yourself, like, well, yeah, I guess I do have value that I can bring because that's what you're doing. And that's like what you have to realize what the job is going to be. And it was scary, but you have to like be dumb enough not to quit and you have to be willing to be broke for 6 months, maybe a year. But I knew that if I was going to do it and what really made sense to me, and I was like, okay, I will do it, is because I was like, okay, if there's a roadmap, if there's just like the things, the checklists I'm supposed to do and figure all that out. And, there's a lot of successful people that have already done it. So if it made sense to me, I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. But it was scary because you just never know. Because salesmen, like, you feel like you're sleazy, right? Like, you don't want to be a sleazy salesman. And that's why I think that the mindset is we're connecting people with opportunities. And I really tried hard to not like sell myself in that way. Like I just tried to be myself. Does that make sense?
Sure. Yeah, totally. And I mean, I know a lot of people struggle with that early on. We've talked about it a number of times on the lowdown where, in the beginning, the thought of being a salesperson almost made turn people off on the job as a whole. Like they really, yeah, it was kind of cringy, a little icky,
Mhm.
right? And so, but there was this moment where, they realized, actually, I'm not a salesperson, I'm this. And so I love the way you phrase it about connecting people with other opportunities. Can you expand on that a little bit more? Like, what do you mean by other opportunities? What are some of the things that you're referring to with that?
Well, I mean, I think that so here's how I put it. I want to be known, or if you are somebody that's known as like, hey, I need a guy. Oh, Amanda has a guy. Hey, yeah, I got a guy, right? Are you that person? I am that person, right? Because people reach out to me all the time. Are you a realtor? Are you in real estate? Like, I need a rental. I need this. Or do you just know something weird, right? Like, I mean, I must get asked all kinds of questions related to, job opportunities, housing stuff, land stuff, or just life, like, opinions, like, who can I connect somebody to? And I think I've just always been that person. And that's really what we're doing because sometimes you sit with people and you're an advisor and you're like, hey, I know this opportunity, or maybe this isn't for you right now. Now that you say that, like, let's talk to that person, right? It's just natural. And if you put that in your mindset of that's what you're doing, to me, the sleazy salesman goes away, right?
Hmm.
It's like I'm talking to you right now. It's like, oh yeah, like, okay, that makes sense. And, if you're, again, putting that advisor hat on, thinking about how I'm setting that person up for success, if you're wearing your loan officer hat, but sometimes you're just a homie, like Connor. It's like, you're like, hey, Amanda, do you know somebody else in Alaska that would like to talk to somebody? Yeah, okay, because we're one connection, now another. And, then maybe like we find each other's like, hobbies that we like food or fishing. And then, oh, I know that he really likes it. He may know. Oh, did you know that person's a butcher and get you moose? That person really likes to give away fish at Christmas time. That girl bakes bread and then has a little side business. You see what I mean? It's layers and layers of connection and being involved in your community. So
Yeah, I love that. And so,
that's what I
but
mean
that
more
didn't
than
come
anything.
natural initially, right? So like
I mean,
what
I
were
think
some of the
that
mistakes that you feel like you were making early on that took a
I think
while to kind of get to this place?
I mean, I don't know if it took me a while. I think it more of just that was the first thing I did was thinking about like connecting to all of the people I know. And I really went to resources of like loan officer podcast, just to know. And like, I get coaching and, it's like, who are the 200 people or 100 people or 50 people that you'd invite to your wedding? Right. Or hearing stories like, if your cousin, bought a house or basically bought a product that you're selling or whatever, and they didn't know that you did the same thing. And then you're like, hey, I do that too. Oh, I had no idea. Then you're not doing your job, right? You're not. I'm like, okay. Oh, Amanda, just go be a part of my community and just let everybody know that I got this cool thing. Like, but do it in a way where, it's natural in conversation. Like, hey, Connor, I haven't seen you in a while. What you up to? Oh, hey, I just got a new job doing this. I work in finance. Okay. Do you know anybody? Or, just it like when you hear that it's really just that simple, um, I just try to do that out of the gate. I mean, it was 2023 when I started, so it was slower, but it took 6 months, 8 months of compounding. In my second half of the first year, like it paid off. Like it was a lot of just doing the work without results. It's like going to the gym, right? Like you don't think you see the results and then afterwards you see it. It's just you have to be in your disciplined era.
Yeah.
And you
Well,
got and
I think that's a great.
hard. But my like even now, because I just want to be a part of my community.
Yeah.
And if I'm that
Well, I think it's
person,
a great call
I even
out.
go to the store with people wanting to talk about loans. I'm like, hey, I'm just trying to go to Costco. Please don't talk to me today.
Well, but I love what you said about like the first 6 months, 8 months of doing the work without the result, because what I
Mm-hmm.
see a lot of people do, and what happens a lot is there's a frustration that happens during that period of time, which then leads someone to start looking for shortcuts.
Mm-hmm.
And they try to do things a different way instead of just kind of sticking to the discipline, being in their disciplined era, as you put it. And they start looking for these shortcuts, which in turn means they're not doing the disciplined work, which would pay off later if they had stuck with it. But now they're getting into this cycle of sort of short cycling what they're going for with instant success to try and get, somewhere faster. And ultimately, a lot of times that ends up kind of putting them at a deficit because they're not putting in the, laying the foundation. So I love that you called that out. Something else that we talked about previously was that, this difference between being a loan officer versus being like a marketing officer, someone who's really, doing a good job of kind of getting the word out about what they do and, being that connector. When you kind of arrived at that realization, like what would you say changed in your business when you kind of fully embraced the marketing mindset?
What changed is my business grew. But when I like just realized that's what it was, I think it helped me. Maybe if like people are watching this and thinking about content, that's like I think a huge thing. I think when I first started, I thought I had to like, here's the mortgage one, two, three. Here's like these tips. Here, I don't know. Like you just like are so in your head about it. But when I realized that my job is to get a lead a day, is if I get 30, leads in a month and I can convert, let's say maybe like just 30 or 40% in the beginning. Like that maybe can like 10 deals and like all the things like it's conversion, it's numbers, it's the more no's to get yourself to a yes, it's to be top of mind, all of that stuff. And so it's like, okay, I'm betting on myself. I've been broke for 6 months and maybe like I didn't plan that I'd be broke for 6 months and now I'm like didn't pay my bills, I'm behind, I'm freaking out. Then that desperation oozes out of you when you're trying to do sales, and that's the worst thing that you can do, right? So I wanted to prevent that. I wanted to fight it. I wanted to fight that stuff, right? Marketing officer first means everybody needs to know who I am. If people don't know who I am in my community, then I'm not doing my job. I would just put myself out there and I would do sometimes silly videos. I would just share stuff or I would, but I just was consistent about doing it, right? I may not did like a million videos every day, but I posted something every day. And then when you make it a habit, you realize that that's what it really is. Like you're a marketing officer first because people are going to, look at you before they want to talk to you, right? But if they feel like they get to know you, then when they see you on video and you're talking, because video is the most important thing to share if you want to make a connection with somebody, because you hear how they talk, the mannerisms, like, you just feel like, oh, I know that person. I'm comfortable. So if I've done that virtually, by the time they meet with me and it matches, we are now already bonded. Like they've already picked me, right? And so I'm a marketing officer first. Just get to know me. Be like, and I say that with the title, but really it's share yourself. You have to share yourself first, and then the loan officer and the lending and what we do professionally, that is second. And if you don't know everything perfectly, like the programs or anything, like there should be teams that you can go to. Hey, help me figure this out, because we're the peers in this room, we're all like doing well in our production, right? So now we're trying to level up. So it's like trying to rely on those teams to help you realize that you don't have to sit in it and work on it, because our job is to get people to want to know us more and spend time with us and engage and basically consume the value that we want to give them. It's probably a long-winded answer, but I wanted to make sure that it's like all of that.
You covered it all, and I love that. And something that for anyone who's listening, and if you wanted to go follow Amanda or just check out the content that she's referring to, something that I really appreciate that I see on your feed is, local, like going to a local coffee shop or a bookstore and sort of highlighting these businesses in the area.
Mm-hmm.
Have you always done that, or was that something you just recently started?
That's
And like, what's
recent.
been the feedback? What's been the feedback from some of those businesses? Like, are they really appreciative of the call out, or like, how's it been going?
I think they're very appreciative. And, I have a marketing person, I invested in myself and delegated that. So she, kind of watched me, learned about me, and I do all of those things. So it was kind of natural. And then to combine and just support and advertise those businesses as well. So the feedback has been good. The first one I did of some of the businesses, I had other businesses go, "Hey, Amanda, where's my video?"
Right.
And then
well, you created demand.
Yeah. And so then, and then I went to the record store, because there's just things that I do. I mean, I think that, we all have our day in the life. So that was just like a natural way of something that I do that didn't make me feel that I was, being a sleazy salesman. I'm just like, that is kind of my day. So I'm glad that you saw
I think
that.
that's wonderful. Yeah. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit and get to kind of tactical, like running the operation business, so to speak. You have an assistant on your team. They handle pre-qualifications. Your processor handles a lot of the file work, and you're working really hard as your business has grown to stay out of the weeds. What has been the hardest part of the business or of the process for you to let go of?
Just handling the pipeline, like all the way, like, just trusting that it's being overseen. I think that's hard for all of us to not just be like, you just, I think right before this call, you were like, I was on a pipeline meeting, right? I think it is hard. And also borrower and client communications, that's hard, because most people want to talk to me, right? So I want to make sure that, the team is giving them the same feel and vibe and care. I think that that's like the hardest.
Yeah. Well, and you shared something with me that you were, for listeners, and maybe you could explain this a little bit. You take frequent flights from one town to another within Alaska, and you had a moment on the airplane once where the email wasn't working. You couldn't work in the air. It was always kind of a good like laptop time for you while you're going from one place to the next. But the team handled everything without, you having to jump in. Was that a freeing feeling, or did that feel slightly terrifying? Like maybe they don't need me. Like what was that? What was that feeling?
It was terrifying. It was just like, oh yeah, it's not the end of the world if I don't actually do the thing. If somebody doesn't do it exactly the way that I do, but it still gets done and it's the goal is accomplished, people are happy, you can let it go. I think it's just really hard because you're really nervous when you first start. At the end of the day, no one's going to make sure your work gets done but you. Everybody wants accountability, hold my hand, but really you have to be accountable to yourself. So when you can trust a team, like, oh, they got it, and there's days like where you're still like, you might have to be in it, but it's nice to know that, you don't have to do everything by yourself.
Yeah. Well, and at the end of the day, the scoreboard is the ultimate accountability partner. If
Mhm,
you're not putting in the work, you won't have points on the board. And,
mhm.
if you're not putting points on the board, well, what else can you do? You got work to do. So I like to ask this question to a lot of guests because I think it's a fun question. And it's always surprising to me sometimes how difficult it is for people to answer. But I'm curious
Oh, goodness.
if yeah, I mean, if you've seen the show Shark Tank, what the concept is. People bring their business to the show, they present it to a group of investors
Mhm.
in an attempt to get an investment in exchange for some, percentage of their business and whatnot. If you were to take Team Filori, production business to Shark Tank and receive an investment, doesn't matter how much, right? Let's just say someone says, "You got it. Let's make a deal." How are you reinvesting that back into your business? What are some of the things that would be valuable to you to take it from one level to a next if you were to receive some sort of an investment?
I would invest it into coaching team members. I would training and like high level education. Like an example would be if I brought on a new assistant, first thing, you've never been in the mortgage industry, we're going to go to Zenix, we're going to do these things, you're going to go over to the loan officer podcast, like you're going to watch all of these things, like it's going to, like that would be a mandatory training. Like you need to understand the path that you're going to walk, and then it's going to be 12 calls a day for 12 weeks when you become a loan officer. But for newer people, they should be really good technicians so that they feel comfortable about what they're talking about. And if so that way, if you can give people that opportunity to really have that good training. And then if I'm a junior loan officer, the same thing, like higher level coaching, not just like, fancy things like AI. I'm talking about like, you have to read a book, you have to turn in a tracker, pass or fail kind of a thing and be accountable. And you have to learn the systems by a certain, day, like whatever the system is that we're following. These are milestones that you need to hit. So I would invest right back in, and I would invest it in my community. I would find ways to go, how can I take money and invest it in my community in a way that educates people about this, but also supports things without, just trying to push an agenda. I mean, because I think that you have to give back and maybe like scholarships and things like that. So in my own team, and then, again, I'm coaching probably in myself and my community, and how can I further educate?
Right. Well, and is one of your goals to build a team? Are you looking to kind of step into that
I
role
would love
somewhere in the
that. I
future?
would love to not have to, be the technician sometimes still, I mean, because when you're building a team, it doesn't mean that you can go hands off, right? You can't just like not work. So you still have a lot of work to do. Anybody that's ever been a manager of anything, oh, this is gonna be great, sweet. I'm gonna have everybody else do my work for me. I'm gonna work on a salary. I might get bonuses still, but what do we all realize immediately? That is our job. That is our life. We consume it. You wake up early and you go to bed, and then it's like a repeat. And I worked in so many different industries where you are working and that's pretty much all you're doing because you are managing something, but it's your business, it's your life, and so you have to do it. So to build a team knowing that I built people that are doing the same thing that I want to do and I can pass on the skills, because the more skills you have, right? Maybe they can teach me new ones about how to be a better leader and teacher. Um, yeah, because I don't want to do it forever. Nobody does. But also, I think teaching people is rewarding.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of loan officers at some point reach a place in their career where, they've achieved a lot. And I know you're relatively newer to mortgage, but not necessarily the workforce. But they achieve, so you've got a lot of achievement ahead of you. But then they reach this place where they want to do, build legacy and pass it down. And, that starts to become really important. And it's interesting to have those conversations because I've got the benefit of being able to talk to people at different places in their career and at different moments and really get sort of those nuanced conversations. And it's really revealing when you start to have, you see the different seasonality of this business and of what being a high producer starts to evolve into over time. It's an impact over income sort of mindset that seems to take over for most people that are producing at a high level, where the impact comes first because the income will always follow, and you start to hear more conversation around the community and giving back and bringing other people along with you. And so it's a really cool like evolution of things that takes place. But Amanda, I don't know if you are aware of this, but people speak highly of you behind closed doors. Like, you were recommended to me by Dustin Owen, who you referred to earlier from TLOP,
Awesome.
as someone that was, like the future of mortgage, right? Someone who's really has impressed upon him. I've heard your name in other circles before. And so you've got the respect of a lot of people in the industry. What's something that you've learned early in, your journey in mortgage? So you got in 2023. What's something that you've learned that you think maybe high performers tend to learn too late?
Ooh, I don't know because, it's hard because I get these accolades and I love it. And I have a hard time being like, yes, I'm good, right? It's hard to, celebrate your own self. It just feels I feel honored like when people think bring value. And Justin's told me before that I'm coachable, which I mean, I think that that's a compliment. But something that's the hardest for top producers, today is not your worst day. I just think, remember that. Today is not your worst day. I have days where I'm just like, oh my God, can I handle it? We have our bad days. Are we doing it? And maybe we aren't our best that day. But was it our worst day? No. That means we're going to get over it and we're going to be okay. And I think that, I don't have any like magic trick, but I think attitude and mindset. Just remember that today is not your worst day, that the team needs to hear you, and we need to, reward in affirmations and words sometimes because we're all in like remote and online. And no matter how much money you make, it's still the same. You still feel, rejection when someone says a no or when you lose, but you love celebrating the wins. And that's okay. Because I remember watching Nancy, 30 years or something in the industry, right? And I got to work with her like kind of side by side for 6 months to a year, but she pretty much was like, Amanda, you got to figure it out. You're good. She was a sounding board, all those kinds of things. But at the end of the day, you just got to do it. But she was 30 years in and she would have the same things, the same struggles that I had the first year, like losing people, like clients, shopping, you, or just being disrespectful, like any of the little things that we go through as loan officers, mostly rejection, right? It's rejection and, not winning. I guess we get the most upset about. And so if it's going to be the same, okay, all right, I'm going to win more than I lose. And today's not my worst day. So even if we're top producers, we all just need that reminder, because when I see people, like I said, she was 30 years in and she would still get upset, but
Yeah,
then have like the next day.
What a great call out. I love that, because you're seeing that it's not just you that's dealing with the rejection. You're seeing someone who's 30 years your senior in the business, still getting turned down and having the same challenges, and realizing, okay, if it's going to happen to them, it's certainly going to happen to me, and it's going to continue happening for the rest of my career. So I might as well just get used to it now and accept that it's part of the gig and it's not personal, and those things happen. Also, I tell my kids this all the time. The best thing about bad days is they always end. And I think that's great advice. Just that it's not your worst day. This is not, things will get better, and you'll always have tomorrow. Maybe not always, but tomorrow's coming, and it's a good reminder that bad days happen, but they're over, and then you start over, and then move forward.
Don't
So
mind about it. Just take care of business, learn, and and remember that we are just vendors for a lot of people. And once we're not a lender anymore, we don't matter in a lot of different things. So just remember that relationships at the end of the day are the most important thing, and how you make people feel, and like what you love.
yeah,
I know that
yeah,
sounds
that's
easy.
great.
I'm probably like repeating like, all these speakers I've heard in my life, but that kind of stuff works. I mean, it matters.
No, but it's great advice. I mean, the truth of the matter is, I like that perspective of people will remember how you made them feel versus what you did. I mean, that's such great advice that I think, sometimes gets thrown out there or dismissed as cliche. But when you really, think about the words there, and think about how they apply to any of your own personal experiences in life, it's really true. Like, the what you'll remember is how someone made you feel. You don't necessarily remember what they did to you, but if they made you feel bad, you remember them, that they made you feel bad. It's kind of like my kid just graduated high school, and so, we're reflecting a lot on our own, my wife and I, on our own high school experiences and all of
Mhm.
this, and just kind of like reminiscing. And sometimes you get caught up in this mindset of like, I can't remember what happened exactly, but I remember I didn't like it, or I remember really liking that person, but I don't remember exactly why, but they were great. They always made me laugh. They were funny. You might not have a specific memory of the individual that you could recall a story on just like that, but you'll always remember how that person, like the impression they left with you and how they made you feel. So I think it's great advice. And Amanda, I just thank you for being on the lowdown and joining the show and kind of sharing your perspective and story. And,
Thank you.
clearly you're doing a lot of great things out there in the market and in the industry. And so I just hope, things keep going well for you, and wish you nothing but the best.
Oh, thank you so much, Connor. It was a great time. I appreciate it.